Hello and welcome to the Sonic Cinema Podcast. My name is Brian Scuttle. Thank you for joining me at www.sonic-cinema.com as well as the Sonic Cinema Podcast YouTube channel. Check out the podcast wherever you listen to podcasts, whether it's Apple, Spotify, Good Pods, basically any podcatcher that you may listen to podcasts at. And that is again, but the YouTube channel, you also get quick takes, reviews, including some of the movies that we're going to be talking about tonight, as well as for film festivals. And I just covered the Renegade Film Festival this past weekend in Marietta, and hopefully we'll be back at the Atlanta Film Festival in late April, early May. And then also you can check us out at patreon.com/Sonic Cinema. There you'll find stuff like Leaving the Collection, Life Soundtrack, discussions on the Oscar nominees, as well as short film block write-ups on the film festival film blocks. As at patreon.com/Sonic Cinema. It is that time of year again. It is time for the Oscars. They're happening on this coming Sunday. And that means a couple of things. At the very end of this, you will get my 10 best list for 2024. But before that, we are going to discuss the Oscar nominations and kind of talk about who we think are going to be the winners with a return guest. She's been on the past few years. And I'm pleased to welcome back to the podcast, Amanda Spears. Thank you very much for join me again, Amanda.
Is this the fourth year in a row?
Yeah, I think this is the fourth year in a row because the first year I had you on was when we were talking about the year Coda won.
Yeah, I love that movie.
Yeah.
And we're celebrating our 5th year anniversary soon.
Yeah. And it's interesting because of the fact that this year, I think this year, to a certain extent, there's been a lot that was kind of a lot to a certain extent has kind of been preordained as far as some of the nominees as well as potential winners. But I think also there's been a few different twists and turns this year in terms of the Oscars. As somebody who keeps track of the Oscars, how do you feel about how this year's progressed?
It's been a little bit more interesting than last year. I mean, anything's going to be more interesting than the last 2 years, where it's like, what's going to happen? It's just a matter of how many awards are they going to pick up.
Yeah.
So that's always a little bit more fun, just for us. But this is where keeping your personal beliefs and feelings about these films, taking the emotion out of it is important.
Yeah. No,
you got to play the stats and you've got to play the odds. And I know that is not as much fun as making a hard overhead prediction and going, but you really cannot do that this year. You have to play the history and the odds of this working out.
Yeah. And I think this might be the first year that we've actually recorded after all of the major awards have actually happened.
We've recorded after all of them.
Yeah, we've always recorded. Because I think last year we still had SAG to do.
No, we didn't. We had SAG.
Okay.
Yeah, we've always had them. All the time.
But yeah, this year is, and I kind of want to get... I kind of want to get your thoughts on this because of the fact that, I do think, you look at a film like, and we'll get into the chances of some of these movies winning more often than not, but it's funny because of the fact that I know for me, one of the things for most of the year that I was just not quite sure of. I know we talked about it a little bit last year when the movie got bumped to this year, and that is Dune Part 2. Obviously, sequel to kind of the big winner of the 2021 Oscar run because it won by virtue of the fact that it won the most Oscars that year. But this year, it's interesting because of the fact that with the way this year has kind of gone, I really kind of thought after Wicked came out that that was going to be kind of the dominant in the technical categories this year over Dune Part 2. But I'll be honest, heading into the Oscars, I'm not quite sure if I believe that anymore.
I think there's room for both films. Remember, it is a sequel, which is, kind of a dirty word in the Academy.
Yeah.
It's not like the second part of a film, which is, different from like what Wicked or like Lord of the Rings is going through.
Yeah.
So I do think that it was always going to have a little bit of a trouble. And also keep in mind that Dune Part 1 came out during COVID, and there was not a lot of tech films that year
Yeah.
for it to even compete with. I mean, it won some Oscars that, frankly, I was like, really? Really? Like, okay.
Right.
You enjoy that, because I do feel like it did benefit a little bit. And something like film editing, I don't think that would have happened if there was another classier option, uh, typically.
Right.
So I do think it probably benefited from COVID, but it is going to face some stiffer competition. And again, it is a sequel, which is of course the dirtiest word in the Academy.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see. I think it's probably not going to do as well as it did last time. I mean, that's not a very bold prediction.
Yeah, I don't necessarily think it will do as well as last time.
It's not even
either.
nominated for as many Oscars as it was last time. So
No, and no. I mean, I do truly. Yeah, I don't see it doing. I don't see it. I mean, for one thing, one of the categories it did get, it won for last year wasn't even allegedly eligible to get nominated for this year, and that was original score.
yeah, they're very
and-
strict on the score category in the music branch. So
which is wild when you consider that Wicked is nominated, and I mean, how much of that music is just like taken from the basically variations on music from the Broadway musical.
I understand that, but you have to remember that with the music branch of the Academy, they really do like cut and paste and look at this to see how much is original, how much is pre-recorded. And if you're over 50% of, I don't know exactly the ratio,
Right.
they will disqualify you. I mean, for example, the Adele song for Skyfall was looked at very closely and became very close to being disqualified because they felt it might have leaned in its orchestration too closely to music from the previous James Bond films. So I understand that, but the music branch is one of the better branches of making sure everything's on a level playing field. So
Yeah.
they won last time. So, and I'm sure, like, I know they've done this at the Emmys where they can, where somebody who really understands music can explain it better. But they had to add music to make it sound like it was fitting in with the musical.
Right.
So
Right.
that's how they were able to qualify. They're not going to win. So, but we can get into that in a little bit.
Yeah, we'll get into that for a little bit because I have thoughts on the music categories this year.
I do too. I have a lot of thoughts on the music categories.
Not necessarily good ones. But no, I mean, and like the past few years, we're not going to necessarily talk about the short film categories. I will admit, I don't think I've seen any of them this year. My catching up really kind of took a nosedive after voting was over for my critics associations. So I'll admit, like, I think the only movie that's nominated that I've seen since the nominations came out was I'm Still Here. and that was mainly because of the fact that that was a Best Picture nominee, and I wanted to make sure I at least saw all 10 of those. But
Sure. Absolutely.
yeah, I just have not had time to get to as much catching up with as far as some of the international features and documentaries and stuff like that that I'd like to try catch up with.
No, that makes sense. That makes sense.
Yeah. So let's go ahead and get started. We're gonna start with we'll just start with the technical awards and kind of go from there. And we'll start with visual effects, with the nominations being Alien Romulus, Better Man, Dune Part 2, Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, and Wicked.
Okay, so I'm going to start off with saying this again because, as you know, I love me stats. If your film is nominated for Best Picture, you get a boost. It's we're more deserving than any other film. So in visual effects, it's only happened once where there was a Best Picture nominee, or actually there were two Best Picture nominees. It was Mad Max Fury Road and The Revenant, and they lost to iRobot. Also, Star Wars, the sixth one was in the mix, or seventh one, sorry. I get the counting confused. Anyway, so that means this is basically between Dune Part 2 and Wicked.
Yeah.
I really think the effects in Wicked are pretty awesome. I mean, I thought the way those monkeys started sprouting wings, it scared the bejesus out of me again.
Yeah.
But I'm going to go with Dune Part 2. I think this is where they award Dune Part 2.
Yeah, I would actually agree with that, and I agree. I think it's between Dune Part 2 and Wicked. Wicked, I will admit, I mean, there's a part of me that would love to see that win, except for the fact that I think especially at I feel like especially during Defying Gravity, I think the visual effects are a little bit more obvious, and I think it's not as polished as it probably could have been in terms of making it feel seamless and making it feel like a truly, and making it feel completely believable. I mean, the performance of the music is what carries that, but I think the visual effects, especially in that last third, are sometimes get a little rough. But yeah, I mean, I would agree with you. I think Dune Part 2 probably takes it here. It would make sense for it to win here. And yeah, I mean, it's funny because of the fact that, I mean, I think my third in this one would actually be Better Man. I thought the way that they did the performance capture was really good in it, but yeah, I mean, I'm with you. It's gotta be one of the best picture nominees, especially since they're the two with by far the most nominations of the bunch.
Yeah, and this is one of these categories when we talk about diversity at the Oscars. This is the category that needs diversity. All of the nominees, all 5 films have at least 3 to 4 people. Sometimes I think maybe one of them has 5. All men.
Yeah. Yeah.
You want to talk about diversity? It's always lovely to talk about directing and editing and cinematography, but this is one where we're not talking about one person for each film. We're talking about 5 people.
Yeah.
All men.
No, we
just want to point that out again.
And we've talked about that in years past too.
Yes, I like to point that out.
Well, I mean, it's worth pointing out. I mean,
yeah, it
really
is worth pointing out. I'm not going to click on all these names and find out what ethnicity everyone is because that makes me look a little weird. But again, all men.
Mm-hmm. No, absolutely. So let's go to Best Sound here. We've got Complete Unknown, Dune Part 2, Emilia Perez, Wicked, and Wild Robot. 4 of the 5 here Best Picture nominees. Wild Robot, wildly popular animated feature. And I mean, naturally, I kind of want to lean well, I mean, 3 of these have heavy music because 2 of them are quote unquote musicals. The third one is a musical biopic, so that's kind of naturally where I'd leave. I kind of feel like this is a win for Wicked.
Well, the BAFTA went to Dune Part 2. And I think this is one where if we had a sound mixing and a sound editing,
Yeah,
we would see a split where like Dune would win sound editing and one of
Wicked
these
would.
musicals
Yeah.
would win sound mixing.
Yeah,
Sorry, Wild Robot, but I do think it's gonna go to Dune Part 2 because when in doubt, go with the loudest film.
yeah, yeah.
And it did just win the BAFTA.
Mm-hmm.
So that is also very helpful. And yeah, I would go with the BAFTA winner. Of course, this is one where we could see an upset, but I don't really know of the three which one would be an upset or more likely to. I don't think any of them have the momentum to pull it off.
No, yeah. I mean, so much of it of a complete unknown, and we'll get to this when we get to actors especially. You know, so much
But if
of it,
Wicked wins, a woman wins. So,
yeah, exactly. I mean, it's just I
again, 5 films nominated, 4 or
Yeah.
5 people. That's where you see more problems than with like just one person.
hmm No, yeah, you're absolutely right. Yeah, I mean, there's a part of me it feels like, I mean, there is a part of me that feels like I don't know. We'll get to it more with some of these other nominations. I'm not quite sure where Wicked stands in as far as how many it wins. I mean, we'll obviously get to some of the other nominations. I mean, especially since it's looking more and more likely that neither of the actresses are going to win.
No, but we can get to that in a minute. But I
Yeah.
think we are going to see a few Wicked wins. I think the problem is that you have 3 musicals kind of clumped together,
Yeah.
and if it was just one, I think I could pick that one as like one of these is not like the other. But
Right.
this is a very big rarity in this kind of a
Yeah.
lineup. So I kind of have to just go with the BAFTA winner here and say Dune Part 2, and that
Mhm.
takes care of Dune.
Yeah. So next, let's do production design. Nominees are The Brutalist, Conclave, Dune Part 2, Nosferatu, and Wicked. We've got 4 Best Picture nominees and 1 absolutely stunning looking horror film. I know.
Well, thank you for playing Nosferatu, but that's not going to happen.
My personal pick is Nosferatu, but yeah, could we make a case for any of the Best Picture nominees winning in this category?
Oh yeah, I think Wicked's going to take it.
Mm-hmm.
It just won BAFTA. And again, you have to remember, when in doubt, go with the most of anything in the category. The most production design, the most costumes, the most editing, the most cinematography, the most acting. And Wicked does have a lot of new locations that we didn't see, like obviously in The Wizard of Oz. I really think I was really happy for the production designers of Conclave because they did such a good job of creating the Vatican.
Mm-hmm.
That was really well done, and it also shows they have a lot of support. But I think this is where we're going to see Wicked pick up their award.
Yeah. No, and
one of their awards.
And one of the things I will say about these 3 categories that we've talked about so far is, with the possible exception of Emilia Perez and sound, which granted I get why it got nominated because it's a musical, but I don't think there's a movie in these 3 categories that makes me go, why did that get nominated? All 5 of the nominees in all of these make sense for being nominated.
Absolutely. These are branches of the Academy that go through various different stages in their voting, where you have to be, they narrow down to like, what is it, 15 or 20, and then
Yeah,
they pick their five. So they really do take this seriously, these branches.
right. No, yeah,
And
absolutely.
it's a good lineup.
Yeah, it is. I mean, that is one of the things, for the most part, based on what I've seen this year, with the exception of one movie, I'm fairly happy with with all of the nominees that I'd seen that got nominated. I think all of them make but I mean, even that one movie, I mean, even in some of these categories, I understand why it got nominated, even if I don't necessarily agree with the nomination. But
Sure.
yeah. So makeup and hairstyling. We have A Different Man, Amelia Perez, Nosferatu, The Substance, and Wicked. Again, we've got 3 Best Picture nominees in here.
This is actually, go ahead.
2 horror films, one of which happens to be nominated for Best Picture.
And a partridge in it. I'm just kidding. No, this is usually one of the categories where I'd say, well, you don't really get a bump being a Best Picture nominee. But I do not see a path for Nosferatu or A Different Man that ends with them winning.
Yeah.
This is one of those awards where if Demi Moore is going to win the Oscar, The Substance needs to pick up something else. And this is the best place for them to do that.
We have talked about that in the past, and that definitely makes a lot of sense in this particular year.
And I think, and these films weren't nominated for Best Picture, but Meryl Streep and the Iron Lady, makeup and actress.
Yeah.
Brendan Fraser, makeup and actor. Jessica Chastain, makeup and actress.
Yeah.
It does show that your film has just enough support to pick up one more award. Now, I will say that you have to remember that this category is called makeup and hairstyling.
Yes.
And that is something that could give Wicked a tiny little bit of advantage, because they have gone to great details of releasing videos that you can see about the wig making, especially with Elphaba, and the makeup process of how they really did want her to seem 3-dimensional and not just flat green.
Yeah.
So they are poised as the spoiler. I think this is actually one of those categories where Amelia Perez was probably the 5th nomination, because I'm like, how did you get in here?
Yeah.
Amelia Perez peaked too early, even before the controversy, which we'll get to later. But
Right.
yeah, I think this is The Substance, and as long as this wins makeup and hairstyling, Demi Moore looks good.
Yeah.
Plus, it picked up the BAFTA, so it's got the momentum. Even the snobs in England were like, yeah, that makeup is crazy.
I was very pleasantly surprised by the support that The Substance got from the Academy. It got nominated for a lot of different things. It could have arguably got nominated for a few more things, namely
Sure.
Margaret Qualley for supporting actress. But the fact that it got actress, writing, directing, and picture, that is, especially for a horror movie, especially for that type of horror movie, it's an extremely impressive haul.
Yeah, absolutely.
It really is.
And it's not just your average horror film. It's more in that psychological Get Out kind of film, where it's not like somebody's just, jumping out with a knife.
Yeah. No, exactly.
Yeah, I'm in your house, and I'm going to kill you.
As far as, I think as far as pure horror, where there's no real mistaking what the genre is, I think you have to go all the way back to The Exorcist for a movie like that, in that genre, that got as many nominations as it did. And
Well, Psycho
why?
got some nominations, but I don't remember how many. So
Yeah, but
yeah,
I mean
it's
that was before The Exorcist. I mean,
sure. Yeah.
since The Exorcist, I mean, you know, yeah, you've had moments like Silence of the Lambs and Get Out and other things, but those are especially movies that kind of blur the line between like horror and, you know, some other genre.
Psychological thriller
Yeah,
kind
I
of.
mean, Substance gets into that as well, but it very much leans into the horror with this.
Yeah, definitely.
So we come to film editing. The nominees are Anora, The Brutalist, Conclave, Amelia Perez, and Wicked.
Conclave.
I mean,
All 5 are Best Picture nominations. I don't think The Brutalist can win since it's like 3.5 hours long. I just don't see. I
well,
don't
I
see
mean,
that happening.
and especially with The Brutalist, I do think there are moments where the pace kind of slows down to the point, and there are some choices I think that are made in that movie, as much as I love it, that just make it hard to support in editing,
Yeah,
beyond
and I
just
also
the
think,
running length.
yeah, and I think in Nora in the middle, it feels a little longer. Like it starts off really splashy and then it kind of really slows down.
Yeah, yeah,
I know it's probably one of the shorter films in this list, but they could have cut 10 minutes out of that film easily and still got to where you needed to be.
yeah. No,
So I do think this is where Conclave really goes for that psychological thriller of building all this tension. It's an election. It feels important this year.
yes.
So I am slowly building to what I think is going to happen, but
Hmm.
we'll get there.
Yeah, we'll get there. Conclave. Yeah, I mean, I can see Conclave. I can definitely see Conclave because, I mean, if the tea leaves are being read right, Sean Baker, who's nominated for editing Anora, is going to get awarded elsewhere. The Brutalist. I mean, it's so hard to see like some of where a lot of that support is going to come from to a certain
Yeah.
extent, which we'll get there as well. But yeah, I mean, I do have to. I mean, Conclave does have the. I do think Conclave has the tightest grasp on its
Hmm.
pacing of all 5 of these movies.
Yeah.
Definitely.
It's the best put together of the 5
Yeah.
as far as like the editing is concerned. There's nothing.
I would agree with that. So
Yeah.
now we get to costume design. We have Complete Unknown, Conclave, Gladiator 2, Nosferatu, and Wicked. I feel like
Okay.
I I mean this has got to be Wicked, right?
Well, here's the 2 things I'll say. One, this is one of the other categories where typically getting a Best Picture nomination doesn't give you a lot of help in this.
Yeah.
But in that case, sorry, Gladiator 2, they don't typically award movies that are more male based. So that's going to affect A Complete Unknown. That's going to affect Conclave. Nobody's going to find that really hard to costume when we're literally watching people in those outfits every other day.
Yeah.
Same thing with Gladiator 2. This is Wicked. I mean, again, if when you're predicting costume and production design, it's always the safest bet to pick the same film in both categories.
Right.
Because ever since 1948, they've been lining up together. If you win one, the odds of you winning the other almost double.
Yeah.
So I do think Wicked wins. Again, it's the most costumes. It's the most difficult. They had to create this entire world.
Yeah. No, I think that's yeah. I mean, I do feel like that's the one that makes the most sense in this one. So
Yeah.
we move to cinematography, where we have The Brutalist, Dune Part 2, Amelia Perez, Maria, and Nosferatu. And I'm baffled by one particular lack of nomination in this one, in how Nickel Boys, which clearly had enough support to be a Best Picture nominee, also Best Screenplay nominee, is so identifiable for its use of cinematography, how in the world it failed to get a nomination in this category.
Oh, you know how it is. There's always one baffling one. Nosferatu, for all of its down below the line, couldn't get in, but this is going to go to the Brutalist.
Yeah.
It won BAFTA. It's again the most cinematography.
Yeah.
So not just because of the little length, that's not always the reason they win, but it is, Lowell Crawley, who did the cinematography, did an amazing job, and he deserves to get that Oscar.
Yeah. No, I definitely agree with that. I mean, that is, I think The Brutalist has definitely been my choice outside of Nickel Boys. So, I mean, I can definitely get to that. So that brings us to the music categories, and we will start with original song, El Mal from Emilia Perez, The Journey from 6888, Diane Warren, Like a Bird from Sing Sing, Mia Camino for Emilia Perez, and Never Too Late from Elton John, Never Too Late, which, okay.
Sing Sing is not a Netflix film, correct? Sing Sing and Never Too Late. Okay.
It was A24.
Yeah.
No, I mean, 3 of these nominations are from Netflix films. So
and Netflix has been in this and with Diane Warren in this exact same scenario. This category, and we've talked about this, so I'll just recap. Netflix's Oscar problems can be summed up by their lack of a song win. Because look at this, they got Mary J. Blige double nominated.
Yeah.
For something they're in this category. All they had to do was run a campaign saying, hey, she's not going to win Best Supporting Actress. Why not give her Best Song? That race was not a sure done thing. She could have done that.
Yeah.
Then they have 3 nominations a few years later. Do they choose the song from The Trial of the Chicago 7, which is also nominated for Best Picture? No. Do they choose the Diane Warren song and run an FYC campaign saying, hey, let's vote for Diane Warren. Let's finally give her Oscar. No, they choose the song from Eurovision.
Yeah.
It baffles me how they haven't won this category.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we haven't seen any blowback from Emilia Perez yet. But these 2 songs could cancel themselves out. I'm still going to go and play it safe with El Mal.
Yeah.
But I do think that this could be one of those weird situations where they finally award Diane Warren.
Yeah.
Like, I wouldn't predict it. I hope she does win finally one day, but oh my God. It's like deja vu.
Yeah. I mean, this is part of why the music categories really frustrate the living daylights out of me, because I'll be honest, I'm very underwhelmed by the nominations in general. I mean, we'll get to score.
Well, they're not even performing them this year, and it's partially because I don't think Zoe Saldana is going to would perform. So that leaves Selena Gomez having to perform these 2. There's not a big name in there other than Elton John.
Yeah.
And then it's like, can you top what you had last year? Probably not.
Right.
Probably not.
I mean, I think I'll be honest, as much as I love Sing Sing, I don't really remember the song from it. So I mean, I wouldn't mind the Diane Warren song wing, but this is one of those where I do feel like El Mal, Emilia Perez, the music is...
Emilia Perez isn't going to go home completely empty-handed.
Yeah, and I mean, it frustrates me that it's probably going to be in these categories, because the music in that movie is arguably my least favorite thing about the movie. Um,
And it's
at
a
least from a
musical. That's
technical
telling you a lot.
standpoint.
Like, oh my God.
The music did nothing for me for this movie. It really didn't. And I mean, that's part of where, and we can go ahead and get into it for original score. It almost feels like this could possibly be a dual win for the movie, and that really is annoyed the living daylights out of me. The nominees in original score: The Brutalist, Conclave, Emilia Perez, Wicked, and The Wild Robot.
Well, only 2 times in the history since they've expanded Best Picture has a film not nominated won this category. And these are all 5, except for Wild Robot.
Yeah,
They're all Best Picture nominees. I'm going to go with the BAFTA winner and say The Brutalist.
that's why I'm hoping that's my favorite of the ones that are nominated. Because I mean, as much as I do like the score for Conclave, I just can't imagine Bertelman winning 2 Oscars in 3 years. That seems really wild to me.
Well, when you're hot, you're hot. Like, you know, that's not the reason I think he would lose. Did they win? Remind me who won the Golden Globe?
Oh, it was Reznor Ross for Challengers.
Oh, that's right.
Which honestly, I will be honest. I'm on record on other podcasts where we're talking about favorite original scores as not being a huge fan of the Challengers score. So I'm one of the few who's honestly kind of glad it didn't get nominated. But the fact that just because of the fact that it's like, are we really going to give Reznor Ross their 3rd Oscar in 15 years? Really? I mean, granted, that's a decent like period of time between wins, but still, it's like, I
feel like they were robbed of a song nomination. I thought their song would, just make more sense. But I do think this is where we're going to see The Brutalist pick up another trophy.
Yeah, and I mean, I'd be fine with it because I love the score for The Brutalist. I mean, ultimately, I'm with you. I don't think Wild Robot has a chance. I'm glad Chris Bowers is nominated. It's good to see him finally get nominated for an Oscar for music. But yeah, I mean, I think The Brutalist is going to win, and it is quite terrific. It's quite terrific score in its own right. So let's move to the documentary feature film Black Box Diaries, No Other Land, Porcelain War, Soundtrack to Coup d'etat, and Sugarcane. I know the front runner has kind of emerged as Sugarcane.
Really?
I thought it had. Just by virtue of critics, it felt like Sugarcane had more momentum than some of the other ones, especially No Other Land. But I mean, it would not surprise me to see No Other Land win documentary feature.
I think this is between the film about Palestine and Israel or Porcelain War, which is about Ukraine.
I mean, that is entirely possible. I forgot what Porcelain War was about. That would actually make sense as well.
I think I'm going to say No Other Land.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, and that movie took.
And BAFTA has no help because they went with Christopher Reeve, so thanks for nothing.
Yeah, exactly.
Although I do like that documentary.
It was a really good documentary, but I mean,
when you're looking at these trying to get some help, you're like, thanks for nothing, BAFTA.
Yeah. Okay, but yeah, I can see Porcelain War winning or No Other Land. I mean, but yeah, especially Porcelain War because, Ukraine is obviously a big topic nowadays. in real life, as is no other, as is Palestine, Israel, of course, but especially with the developments in the new new administration, Ukraine is has kind of taken hold a little bit more, but
Yeah, it's just whether or not it was enough at the time of voting that
yeah.
we'll see. Yeah.
So
Happy days.
yep. So
It's always nice when all 5 films make you clinically depressed.
yeah.
At least they're not all about the same topic, like one year when they were all about Syria. And you're like, I don't think I should know more than the
Right.
president.
Yeah.
Because it was during the, it was during the first administration of,
Yeah.
So,
So let's move to the animated feature film. Nominees are Flow, Inside Out 2, Memoir of a Snail, Wallace and Gromit, Benjamin's Most Foul, and The Wild Robot. And I will be honest, I think this is probably the strongest this category's been since it's been in its existence. Like I don't think there's a single movie where it's like, how'd that get nominated in there? Like every
yeah,
movie
it's
makes
a
the
good
most sense.
group. Again, thank you, BAFTA, because I would be absolutely shocked if Wallace and Gromit was able to repeat here.
Wallace and Gromit was always going to win BAFTA. I mean, it was always going to, I think it was always going to win BAFTA because it's Wallace and Gromit.
British. Yeah, it's British.
But
I think just by the sheer amount of nominations, I have to go with The Wild Robot.
Yeah. I adore Flow. I love Flow. It's one of my favorite movies. It's my favorite movie of last year, but yeah, I'm not going to complain Wild Robot winning. I love Wild Robot as well. Like,
although I do love a good surprise, so I wouldn't mind if Wallace and Gromit won just to see the shock. So
Well, and look, the Academy has a known history of loving Wallace and Gromit. The Curse of the Were Rabbit won Best Animated Feature, so it is.
Yeah, you never know.
Possible. But no, I do think Wild Robot probably has the momentum. I would love to see Flow win, but yeah, I think I'm not going to begrudge Wild Robot just because I did love that movie as well. So here's where I'm very interested to and we can start to get into the controversy about Amelia Perez. Best International Feature Film.
Yeah.
I'm Still Here, The Girl with the Needle, Amelia Perez, Seed of the Sacred Fig, and Flow. 2 Best Picture nominees.
I've been waiting for this for a long time, as you know. I've been we talk about this every year, and every year I say to you, if you're nominated for International Feature and Best Picture, you're the winner. Last year there was only 1, and there should have been 2.
Yeah.
And you're the winner. And now we have 2, but we have one with this huge controversy. And you're like, ugh. But I think the fact is, and I will just say this, when the nominations, after the Golden Globes, then Amelia Perez overperformed.
Right.
And then the Oscar nominations came out, and Amelia Perez overperformed. I said, this film's peaked too early. This is pre the controversy.
Yeah.
I said, this film has peaked too soon. It's not going to do well. And then all hell broke loose. I assumed Netflix was going to screw this up. I figured they were going to lose their minds like they did when Roma was nominated and run some huge campaign that made everybody go, no. You're going to charge me an extra $1 a month so you guys can run FYC ads for...
Right.
I would like to say thank you for not having Amelia Perez start playing after everything like you did with Roma. That was always my problem was I'd finish something and then Roma would start playing again. And I'm like, stop it. I don't need to see this movie a 20th time. But that being said, I still think Amelia Perez is going to win. It's out front. It has a ton of nominations and support, and we haven't seen a backlash for the film for what Carla Sofia Gascons has said. And
It did win the BAFTAs as well.
yeah,
So
yeah,
I mean that is
that's a good sign.
Yeah, I do think a lot of people would really love to see I'm Still Here take the win here, but yeah.
And the nominees are very close to what they had at BAFTA. So, and it did beat I'm Still Here. So, and France has not won this in like 30 years, I think. It's been a long time for France.
Yeah. Yeah.
Granted, this movie is in Spanish. So, remember when last year that was the problem?
Yeah. Ugh.
Thank you, Carla, for proving anyone can be a horrible person. Like, oh gosh.
Yeah. Goodness gracious.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I mean the fact that Amelia Perez is potentially going home with just that much is kind of annoying me. But I mean the idea that may lose best original score, I can kind of
It's not going to win. It was never going to win score, but it might win. Its top is probably 3.
Right.
With a potential for just 2 where it loses song.
Yeah. Yeah. So next, let's get to the writing categories, and we will start with original screenplay, Anora, The Brutalist, A Real Pain, September 5th, and The Substance. I feel
okay. So go ahead.
So this definitely feels so. There's a part of me that wants to believe that this is kind of Sean Baker's just they've already engraved the statue on it. But at the same time, when you look at some of these other nominees, with the probable exception of September 5th, I don't see that wing in this category at all.
Well, here's the thing. Go ahead. No, sorry.
No, go ahead.
So here's the thing: is that since for the past 15 years, when they've expanded Best Picture,
yeah,
you cannot win a screenplay award without your film being nominated. So in theory, that should eliminate A Real Pain and September 5th, which is the worst named film of the freaking year. Somebody asked me if that movie was about 5 days before September 11th. I'm like, no. Other horrible events have happened in September.
Yes.
Now, that being said, BAFTA did throw us a curveball and awarded A Real Pain original screenplay.
Mm-hmm.
I want so badly to be wrong. Nothing would make me happier than A Real Pain and Jesse Eisenberg winning. I think the fact that he wrote such a beautiful screenplay and then wanting to play the role Kieran Culkin took, but knowing he couldn't do it. Yeah, and then because I was like, well, let me look at when it was just 5-5. It was still very rare for a screenplay to win. Like, I could only find 2 prior examples recently, and that was like Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind and then Pedro Almodovar, where it won, obviously. Yeah.
So yeah, you're talking about at least 20 years since
Best
Picture nominees won.
Yeah, so for that, I feel like we're kind of reliving the year of 2016. The Oscars obviously took place in 2017, where you had La La Land, Manchester by the Sea, and Moonlight, and you've got 3 very big auteurs making these films, and they're involved with everything: directing, writing, producing, editing. And I feel like we're going to see them want to spread the love a little bit more than they normally do. So I do think this is where Anora takes a big award.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to remember, this is not best screenplay not based on a previously published material,
Yeah.
which leaves the door open a tiny little crack for The Substance,
Yeah.
because that is, of all of them, the most original.
Yeah. I agree.
I mean,
I
like we have seen Her and other films where you're like, win this because they're the most original.
yeah. I mean, that's probably part of why Taughter won for Almodovar at the
Mhm.
time. Because
Yeah.
it
Or
was
Eternal Sunshine.
unlike anything. Yeah, exactly. Both of
Yeah.
them. I mean, it was completely unlike anything else that was nominated those years. No,
Sure.
I'm definitely with you on probably being Anora, but I can definitely see Substance winning. I do think that is a possibility, and I would be happy to see that win. I would be happy to see that win. I think it's, but yeah, I mean, yeah, it's been so long. To your point, it's been so long since a non-best picture winner has won this award. Yeah, and A Real Pain. I mean, we just talked about, one of the things that distinguishes both of those movies that won 20 plus years ago for original screenplay without best picture is because they're so wholly unique and original.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I mean, as well written as A Real Pain is, it's not on that level of
No, and that's the thing
originality.
against Jesse Eisenberg. I think I mean, A Real Pain was my favorite movie of the year. I don't care what anyone says. I feel bad that it got bumped out of the Best Picture lineup. But I do think that this is probably Anora The Substance.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anora or The Substance. And I think this is Anora's big award. This is where Sean Baker is finally going to win something.
Yeah.
Because I think they're going to spread the wealth around a little bit more.
Okay. Okay.
This is he won BAFTA, yeah. He won BAFTA too, so.
Mm-hmm. So next we go to adapted screenplay with the nominees being Complete Unknown, Conclave, Amelia Perez, Nickel Boys, and Sing Sing.
Oh, I'm sorry. A Real Pain won BAFTA. Nora didn't win BAFTA. I apologize. I'm getting myself confused now. It won the WGA is what I wanted to say.
Yeah,
apologize.
WGA. So
not that matters because we know like half of these weren't eligible probably.
Yeah. But so
if you have management that tells you that you're winning an Oscar after you won WGA,
yeah,
you need to get a new manager. Like, they are not setting realistic expectations.
Yeah. So adapted screenplay, we've got Complete Unknown, Conclave, Amelia Perez, Nickel Boys, and Sing Sing. We have four Best Picture nominees here. I don't think Amelia Perez has a chance in hell of this win. I feel like, as much as I would love to see Nickel Boys win, I feel like this is probably going to be Conclave.
Yeah, you're right. Don't overthink this. This is where you've got to, as a pundit, which is what you're doing right now. You're not, predicting these as a fan.
Yeah.
This is where Conclave is going to pick up its big award.
Yeah.
I do love Conclave. I felt a little bad because I read the book and I felt like John Lithgow got hosed because in the book he has one of those like better curse at the heavens kind of scenes where you're like, oh damn. I was so excited because he was going to be in the movie and he's playing the big villain and I'm like, they took his scenes out. But yeah, I do think it's Conclave. It's Conclave. Yeah. It won BAFTA, and the thing is that I would usually be like, hold off, it's British. It didn't go overboard. BAFTA didn't go so overboard where we're like, okay, calm down. Like, clearly they went too crazy with their flag waving here. So I do think, again, this is where we see Conclave pick up an award, pick up their big award. Mm-hmm. And then we can move on.
Okay. So we will go to the acting nominees. We will start with supporting actress. Monica Barbaro for Complete Unknown, Ariana Grande for Wicked, Felicity Jones for The Brutalist, Isabella Rossellini for Conclave, and Zoe Saldana for Amelia Perez. I know you and I have talked, and
Yeah.
we kind of felt like if SAG would give the momentum to that winner, and I do kind of think that's true because I mean Zoe Saldana won the Globe for this, won SAG for this. I mean,
After Critics' Choice.
yeah,
She's got everything. It's done. There's no possibility that we would see a backlash at the Oscars if we hadn't seen something pop up at BAFTA or SAG.
yeah,
So if we haven't seen it by now, it would be a huge shock if someone like Ariana Grande could finally overtake her at the Oscars.
yeah. No, I agree with that.
It's weird that Felicity Jones, the past nominee, had such a quiet nomination.
Yeah,
We haven't really heard anything from her. She hasn't been on any shows or anything. And I just want to say, like, I've been to Hungary. I was on a tour. The tour guide was from Germany, I believe. Spoke like 5 languages and could tell you like 3 words. And to say like 3 words in Hungarian, it's not an easy language. I don't see what the big deal is, basically. Like,
yeah,
I understand Adrian Brody's mother is Hungarian, but unless she was speaking that to him his entire life,
mm-hmm.
there's no way that they could do that without some help. It's not like teaching someone enough French to like stutter and stammer their way out a few words.
Yeah.
It's not a simple language, but I do think like we would have seen something along the way for a bump. But good for Isabella Rossellini, that career nomination.
Mm-hmm.
Having a fun time getting to go as a nominee. Good for her.
Yeah.
Well, it's nice. It's nice.
Yeah,
So,
it is.
He comes from one of those famous families, so
No, very much so. And yeah, I mean, and
carving
plus,
your own
I mean,
path.
honestly, well, and the thing is, it's like, you know, the part of the way I look at Zoe Saldana is her win for this is, I think it's for a lot of people who, you know, she's been so great in the Avatar movies that, and they're not doing anything as far as performance capture category or performances. This is a good place for her to get her laurels as an actress.
Yeah. And it's nice for I don't know if she'll ever get another chance at it. I know that's like a bummer, but
and that's
for someone
the other thing.
like for somebody like, just to go back to Rossellini, her mother's Ingrid Bergman.
Yes.
Like just to be nominated in the, you know, when your parents are as famous as her parents are, Roberto Rossellini, it's an incredible.
Oh yeah, we actually discussed it on the last episode of the podcast, actually, in a completely different context. But yes, Isabella Rossellini, daughter of Roberto Rossellini and Ingrid Bergman, and yeah, I mean, I do see it as like the career nomination for her because she had never been nominated before. I mean,
and her mom won Best Supporting Actress for Murder on the Orient Express, so it's kind of lovely that, like, God, now I can't do math. 50 years later, in the same category, her daughter is nominated. That's just kind of a nice thing for her. She's always been compared to them.
Yeah.
So for her, good for her. I'm very happy for her.
We now come to probably the easiest category to predict of these acting nominees.
I think they're both easy. The supporting races, they're so dull. I'm like, this is boring.
I think SAG. I think SAG sorted out
sealed the deal
for supporting actress. The probable winner for supporting actor has basically been known for a while. Nominees are Yuri Borisov for Anora, which I love that. I love that nomination so much. He was so great in that movie. Kieran Culkin for Real Pain, Edward Norton for Complete Unknown, Guy Pearce for The Brutalist, and Jeremy Strong for The Apprentice. I I also love the Jeremy Strong nomination. Really a great performance as a really despicable human being.
Oh, I mean,
Um,
remember that Al Pacino, yes, very different film, very, very different, limited series, one's a movie, played Roy Cohn. So to even take that on is a monumental task, not to mention that as much as I hate Donald Trump, I love that he hates this movie, which is why I watched it. But it that final scene Jeremy Strong has where he's just looking at him and you can see everything in his face.
mhm.
I mean, he really does give. It's a shame that he hasn't gotten more attention for his performance.
Yeah,
I mean, everyone's seen Succession. You don't watch TV, but you've heard of Succession. Come on, like you've probably
yeah,
seen an episode or
exactly,
two.
exactly.
Like the two of them nominated, I've been waiting for Kieran to be like, who's the big brother now? Like something.
Hmm.
Um, but I do also just want to say, like, the one thing Kieran Culkin has going against him is the film is not nominated for Best Picture, but like Christopher Plummer for Beginners, he has swept everything, so this
Yeah,
is done. I will also just add, this is Edward Norton's fourth nomination.
yeah,
Mark Ruffalo has been nominated 4 times. Saoirse Ronan's been nominated 4 times. I'm starting to fear what those 3 people are going to do to finally win, because I feel like we're going to get another Kate Winslet kind of cringe situation where it's like,
yeah,
oh,
yeah. No,
like
as
what
much as
will it take to get one of them across the finish line is what scares me.
yeah, and I mean, as much as I liked Edward Norton in Complete Unknown, I thought it was very good in the movie. It's like, yeah,
He doesn't have enough to do.
I basically looked at his nomination as well. This is because they just genuinely really like Edward Norton,
The movie,
and
yeah.
in the movie, but in particular Edward Norton. So it
I would
makes sense.
replace him with Denzel Washington or Terrence
Yeah.
Macklin. Like, I guess that Denzel was doing something only a movie star could do. Like that, you just
Yeah,
you. there's only a few people who can do that. Like, but good for Guy Pearce.
yeah.
He was in a King's Speech, so that's a nice. I mean, it's a nice group.
And he and going all the way back to LA Confidential and
Yeah.
Memento. Yeah, I mean, it's good to finally see him get nominated. But
Well,
yeah,
he
I
does
mean,
have an
this is
Emmy, so it's not like he's completely awards list. But
right. But yeah, this is Kieran Culkin all the way. And
yes,
yeah,
his bit has not run. Um, it's not worn out yet. I mean, even his SAG award speech, where he's like, "It's so heavy, and they have to give it heft," and then everyone's like, the actors, it's got to be heavier. It's like,
yeah.
yeah, I heard it's like 20 pounds. I'm like, oh yeah, that's like 12, 15 pounds. I'm like, yeah, that's too heavy. I wouldn't want to lug that thing around. Like, good lord. So yeah, I mean, still very sweet.
Yeah.
So
So
I think he'll probably be, at least a little bit more sincere, a little less self-deprecating, but
yes. Yeah.
we'll get a good mix. And somebody like Culkin, just to add a few things about this, it's very easy to understand why the industry as a whole would want to prop him up when you just look at his family and
Mhm.
what has happened to some of the other children in there.
Yeah.
But it's also like, see, he's been acting since he was a little child, and he's not screwed up. He's almost well adjusted.
Yeah. Yeah,
Like
exactly.
it's not hard to understand why they'd want a former child actor who's not. He's like, we don't turn them all into drug addicts who can't hold jobs.
Yeah, and I mean, I remember watching Igby Goes Down was the first time I
Hmm.
really took note of him as an actor. He was absolutely phenomenal in that movie. And then yeah, I mean, it's just basically been a trajectory from there.
Well, he
And
almost turned this down because of Succession. He just finished Succession, and then like 2 weeks later had to go do this. Like,
yeah,
and I mean, he really, if you've seen Succession, which I'm sure you have, like how just completely opposite these characters are, to the point where it's like he's not playing himself.
right,
There
right.
is some craft in this. So
No, absolutely. So now,
And it's nice to have a winner who'll give a good speech. Like, let's
yeah,
face it,
yeah.
Zaldana has yet to give a great speech. So at least we know one of them's going to
Oh yeah, definitely.
deliver.
So now we come to Best Actress.
Can
Nominees
we do
are
actor first?
okay. We can no. I mean, we can get actor first. So nominees are Adrian Brody, Timothy Chalamet, or Adrian Brody, Brutalist, Timothy Chalamet, Complete Unknown, Coleman Domingo for Sing Sing, Ray Fiennes for Conclave, and Sebastian Stan in The Apprentice.
What
My-
are you going to do? I
My-
mean,
my heart breaks for Coleman Domingo because that was easily the best performance of the year, in my opinion. I thought he was phenomenal in Sing Sing, but it breaks my heart that he's like nowhere really in this conversation anymore. 'Cause-
no, he's either in fourth or fifth, depending on how you rank him.
yeah. Sebastian Stan, I will say, was really good in this movie. I thought Jeremy Strong was a bit better.
Yes,
but
I agree with you on that.
I do. I know after the Globes, a lot of people were thinking a different man get nominated for that, but I mean, I do. You know, and we talked about it over in their own league when nominations came out, where it's like, you know, what type of message is the Academy sending nominating this film? It's like, well, it's clearly a nomination saying "F you" to Donald Trump because of the fact that this, to your
To a
point,
certain extent, but there is a
not
slow
movie that-
progression.
this is not a movie that he likes, and it doesn't
No,
paint
but
in a
it-
good
it-
way at all.
It shouldn't negate the performance that Sebastian Stan gives
No,
as like
it-
this wide-eyed
it should
Brooklyn
not.
person.
No,
Is he
it
from
should
Brooklyn
not.
or Queens? I can't remember. But anyways, this wide-eyed guy from Queens, kind of struggling, hustling around to, by the end, a metamorphosis of what he's learned from Roy Cohn to the where you're like, oh my god,
Yeah.
you are such an asshole. I really, really feel bad because I was really hopeful that Ray Fiennes was finally going to get that Oscar.
Yeah.
And part of me always wanted to replay this year with it being Grand Budapest Hotel because I think he might have been able to take it because that was such a breath of fresh air for him.
Mm-hmm.
Here's the thing is that this is the problem Adrian Brody has. If he loses to Timothée Chalamet, he doesn't just lose an Oscar, he loses his record as the youngest winner ever in this category.
Oh wow, I didn't even think about that.
By a matter of like months, he will lose his record. Now, the good news, bad news is that the SAG Awards didn't really love The Brutalist. He was the only nomination when you compare that to the 4 that A Complete Unknown gave.
Yeah.
I think Michael Phelps is going to lose this race. I'm not a fan of what he said last night. I'm like, what in the? I'm like, I get that, but like, there's no way in hell Mikey Madison could have gotten up there and said the same thing and not been called like, you know,
Yeah.
a number of sexist comments. That being said, Brody has won BAFTA. And again, you have to remember that this is the Academy voting as a whole. So I think the fact that the Academy is voting as a whole helps
Yeah.
Brody because it's the most acting.
Mm-hmm.
There is not anything that this man has not done in that film,
Yeah.
down to sexual assault, like victim,
Yeah.
we should say. But I don't know if I can say that on this, but you can cut it out if you want to. Anyways,
no, I mean it. I put explicit content on each episode, even if there's not any, so I have no problem with that. But
I mean, it's a spoiler, but we're talking about. I'm not telling you what half of the film this is in, but this really is an expansive, huge performance. This
Yeah.
is 22 years afterwards, and then I went back and I did something. Well, I did something last year because I watched The Zone of Interest, and then I read that article that Steven Spielberg wrote about that film, and I was like, well, I haven't seen Schindler's List in a while. So I went and watched Schindler's List, and then for like a week or so, Amazon kept recommending Holocaust films.
Mhm.
And I kept watching them, which is like slightly depressing, but I got to The Pianist.
yeah.
And then a few months ago, I was thinking about the fact that, Adrian Brody took this record from Richard Dreyfuss.
Mm-hmm.
So I went back and I watched The Goodbye Girl. And those are like those undeniable performances from a young 28, 29-year-old actor.
Yeah.
Whereas I don't know if Timmy gives that kind of undeniable, yes, he should win this Oscar performance, where maybe he needs to wait another turn.
I agree with that. I did really like his performance in Complete Unknown. But yeah, I think, Adrian Brody in The Brutalist is such a gargantuan achievement. I mean, the idea that he possibly even surpassed the work he did in The Pianist, which is a movie, regardless of what you think of the filmmaker who made it, is a phenomenal film. And it's the fact that he just this is his movie through and through.
Mm-hmm.
And
he's in almost every scene of this film.
And
I mean, there are few, there's like 2 or 3 scenes without him.
Yeah. And I mean, he is my second in this category to Coleman Domingo.
Yeah, and I will just add, going back to the Dreyfuss of this all, he did get one more chance 18 years later himself. He lost to Nicolas Cage. Yeah, he lost to Nicolas Cage for leaving Las Vegas.
Mm-hmm.
Say what you want about that, but anyways.
No, I mean, Timothée Chalamet is like he is an actor who will no doubt be back. I mean, he will no doubt be back. I will admit he's an actor who's grown on me over the years. I was not the first few years after Call Me by Your Name, I'm like, enjoy him. It's only really been since Dune and Bones and All and stuff like that where I'm like, okay, I'm starting to appreciate him a little bit more as an actor as far as what he does. And so
I think he's fallen into this like celebrity kind of thing where
yeah.
And then now all of a sudden he's decided that he wants to be the greatest actor of all time. And, say what you want about Leo. Leo was in a very similar situation, very young, very good looking.
Yeah.
Got an early Oscar nomination, younger than Timmy.
Yeah.
At 19 for What's Eating Gilbert Grape, which just maybe hasn't aged very well.
Right.
But still, he had to wait till he was like 40.
Yeah.
I mean, they have a tendency to make these, good-looking Hollywood. I mean, they've never awarded Bradley Cooper. They haven't gotten to a lot of people yet for that reason. Where maybe it's like, yeah, you need to wait. Whereas, yes, maybe people haven't seen all of The Brutalist, but if you get through the first half of that film, you're like, shit.
Yeah.
He deserves to win this Oscar.
Yeah.
Like, this is not the same character he played in The Pianist.
No.
And I'm not just saying that because it's not a real life person. I'm saying this because this is a completely, yes, they both survived the Holocaust. But I did like that joke for the Globes.
Yeah. No, exactly.
You got to make a Brody joke. That's a very good one. 2-time survivor of the Holocaust. But still, Brody gives an amazing performance in this. And he has staged, like, I had to wait and wait for the right role to come along.
Right. Do you think, because, in light of all of the Emilia Perez controversy, The Brutalist had a bit of controversy as well by the fact that it was revealed that they used AI to manipulate Adrian Brody's voice in his performance.
Just in the Hungarian parts.
Do you think that could be part of the reason why he lost SAG?
No, I think the part of the reason they lost SAG was there was issues with the screeners and the fact that it only had one nomination.
Okay. All right.
I do. I mean, I understand why people love A Complete Unknown. Maybe I need to see it a second time. I thought it was good. I didn't think it was like the greatest musical biopic I've seen.
Oh, it's not even the best one James Mangold has made. I mean,
Oh no.
no, it's not even the best one. I do really like A Complete Unknown, but it's not even the best one James Mangold has made. But
Well, let me ask you: do you think he's going to have some push? I think he might have to wait a little while now that he's declared he wants to be the greatest.
I mean,
If this doesn't work out,
I mean, it kind of depends on what the choice. It kind of depends on what choices he makes. I mean, if he gets if he chooses the right role with the right time, I can see him being back like sooner rather than later. But it just, I mean, I can understand that maybe being a bit of a turnoff, but at the same time, I mean, it's it's one of those things where it's like I do think to a certain extent. I mean, there's a little bit of cockiness to it, and I mean,
I understand that, but Mikey Madison's around the same age. She could not get up there and say, "I want to be."
oh no,
You know,
absolutely not. No, I agree with that. I no,
it's just. I was like,
oh
"Come
no,
on."
you're absolutely right with that. No, yeah, you're absolutely right with that. But yeah,
I think that's why we didn't see any cutaways to the audience during his speech, because there's probably some people like, "You got to be out of your mind."
yeah. So
Yeah,
now,
Edward Norton is one of the best actors working, and he has yet to win an Oscar.
yeah, yeah. Which I mean, granted, he should have won early on. I mean, he
Oh,
really.
the Birdman one. I mean, that was just poor timing. He so would have won if it. That was
Well, I
so
mean,
good in
I would
Birdman.
say he should have won for American History X. I mean, I would go all the way
Oh,
back
that's a good
that
one.
he should.
Yeah.
I mean, oh, but that was the year Roberto Benigni won, for crying out loud.
Yes.
As much as I really liked like Life is Beautiful, it's like, yeah, no, in that category that year, no, he should not have been the best actor winner.
That was the fifth. That's because he was also nominated for director. He got the bump. He's the
Well,
only two
and it
actors have
was,
ever won and have ever directed themselves to an
yeah.
Oscar-winning acting performance.
Well, and it was also Best Foreign Language Film winner and also Best Picture nominee. So yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
and yeah, I mean it had,
And
a
he
lot
was
of
nominated for
momentum.
director, and
Yeah.
I mean, there was a lot of stuff going on, but we don't need to
No, we
talk
don't
about.
need to.
He's never really mattered ever since then. So
No, he hasn't. Once he made that god awful Pinocchio movie back in as his follow up, I mean that basically was
then
it.
he
I
came
mean,
out of hiding to do a Woody Allen movie, and we're like, "Oh, you're still annoying." Okay.
yeah. Well, it's funny. Benini had, except he didn't direct it. He had another Pinocchio movie where he played Geppetto,
Oh
and a
God,
few
what is
years
his
ago. But that
fascination
was
with
actually, but I
Pinocchio?
will say that was actually a really good movie. I really was intrigued by what that movie did. But anyway, we're
Hard
getting
pass.
really off topic.
Oh yeah, hard
Let's go
pass.
off to a certainly not controversial topic in general. The nominees for Best Actress in a Leading Role: Cynthia Erivo for Wicked, Carla Sofia Gasson for Emilia Perez, Mikey Madison for Nora, Demi Moore for The Substance, Fernanda Torres for I'm Still Here.
And Fernanda
Uh,
Torres also nominated in the same category her mom was the first time for it in a foreign language. Mother daughter in the
okay,
same category.
all right.
That's fun. They should present Fernanda Torres and Isabella Rossellini. They could, that would be cute. Like both of them are nominated in the same categories their moms were in.
Yeah.
Presented, they could present, and it'd be a cute pairing for some of us who understand what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
So Mikey Madison had the opportunity at SAG to close the door.
Yeah.
If she'd won SAG, it would be over. It
Yes.
wouldn't matter that Moore won BAFTA and Critics' Choice, Golden Globe and Critics' Choice, because there's no overlap.
Yeah.
But Mikey Madison couldn't do it. Demi Moore once again pulled it out. So it's now, regardless of what Gascon has done and said, this is Moore versus Madison.
I honestly don't think Gaston ever had a chance in this movie, in this
No.
category, even before the controversy. Even before
He was
the controversy, he never had a
probably
chance.
somewhere, depending on third through fifth, of how you would rank him.
Yeah.
And now I would wonder if she even gets a vote.
Right. No, I can.
She is not a member of the Academy, so she
Yeah.
might not become a member after this year either.
Oh yeah, and I don't see her attending either. So I mean, she's basic.
No, she said she's attending. She said
Oh,
she's
wow.
attending.
That's gonna be interesting. No,
Considering they cut her out practically of the montage for last night for
yeah.
Amelia Perez.
No, it is definitely Madison versus Moore. Madison obviously was the critics' darling. She won about as many critics awards for Anora as you could. But starting with that Golden Globe win, you could feel the momentum shift for Moore. And
yes, and she's been so endearing all season.
Yeah.
And it was so smart of all of her friends to get together, even on like the Drew Barrymore show, and host that little reunion.
Yeah.
So smart.
You know what? I'm not going to begrudge her the win. I love it. I've been a fan for 30 years of her.
Mm-hmm.
I'm ready. Like, give it to her. Like, I want
I think
her
this
to
is her moment.
Yeah, I want her to have her moment on that stage.
I think if this is her moment, I think the fact that The Substance did so well, it overperformed. Yeah, and I do think that like BAFTA was going to be a little harder because she is more known as a popcorn actress, as she said and admitted to. And you know, I could understand some snobs not liking it, but the Academy as a whole, how do you not like her? How do you not? I mean,
and the fact of the matter is, this movie is about celebrity in Hollywood.
But it seems more relevant because it's about women.
About celebrity in Hollywood. But that plays two people in Hollywood.
Yeah, but also it's going to seem more relevant because it's about a woman aging. It's about still being, as you said, relevant. Whereas I just cannot imagine in this year, in this social climate, someone playing a sex worker winning another Oscar. Like, I can't. I don't see how we're back at that again.
Yeah, I will be honest. Like, I've never. I mean, I'm a member of two critics associations that both gave Mikey Madison the award for Best Actors, and I'll be honest, as much as I really like her performance, I never really saw her winning an Oscar as an inevitability, in part because of the character she plays.
No, I agree, and I know that people think that's an oversimplification, but it's not. She is a sex worker.
Well, and the thing I would say, I mean, I would say less because of a sex worker, because I mean, you know, that is a character that has been won or nominated in the past. You know, and I think
it's like the most wins.
Yeah, I mean, but as much as I like that movie, there is a time where her character kind of gets fairly monotonous, and her arc really kind of it doesn't really move forward to a certain extent. And Demi Moore's in The Substance is always moving forward.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree with you on that, and I think that like I do think that like for Demi Moore, it just feels like this is it. This is her time.
Yeah,
she's in the right movie. It's at the right time. It seems so relevant.
Yeah,
And frankly, I think she'll give again, not that it matters, but I do like a good speech, and at least
and she'll give a really great one. I think
yeah, and
she'll
I
give a
do
really
think that
great
like
one.
it's really hard sometimes to win Best Actress on your first out.
Yeah.
I mean, even Julia Roberts, like, she didn't win for Pretty Woman, but she had been nominated before.
Yeah.
Like, your first nomination at that young age, I mean, I understand why it could happen,
Mm-hmm.
but I still think that more. And now I understand why people say that, like, well, yes, it was going to be easier for her to win SAG than it was going to win BAFTA because of how many people she's worked with, how many friends she has. But wouldn't that also apply to the Academy?
Yeah. No,
Wouldn't
you're
that
right.
also? I mean, wouldn't that also make her an easier sell in the United States compared to? And I also wonder, when I mentioned this with Michelle Yeoh losing BAFTA to Kate Blanchett, I wonder if they had been reversed like they used to be, would BAFTA had followed? Would BAFTA have been like, well, the trains left the station? Would
Yeah.
the voters have changed their? How close was it?
Mm-hmm.
Because I do think sometimes it's like, well, we know who's going to win, so we might as
Right.
well. No one wants to be on the losing team.
Yeah.
So that's my sneaking suspicion, is that this was probably very close.
Yeah.
But I won't be as heartbroken as I was last year. So you and I.
No,
were like,
that's true. Yeah.
"Ah."
Yeah.
Yeah. We don't need to go into that, but
No. So
we'll do a retrospective episode about what happened.
yeah. So that brings us to directing. Sean Baker for Nora, Brady Corbett for The Brutalist, James Mangold for Complete Unknown, Jacques Audiard for Amelia Perez, and Coralie Farge for The Substance. I know Sean Baker won DGA, but I also cannot help but feel like Brady Corbett has a reasonable chance for Brutalist because of the sheer scope of the project.
Yeah, I think this is where we're going to see a split. I think they're going to go with the BAFTA winner and go with Brady Corbett. I think they're going to want to give Brady Corbett something for.
Yeah.
Again, he has the most to direct.
Right.
I think James Mangold probably bumped Berger out of the list for the Conclave. But he does such good jobs with. I like his movies, so I can't blame him for putting him in. But
yeah,
I'm going with the BAFTA winner.
I will admit, when I had completely forgotten that Mangold had not gotten nominated for Walk the Line, and that this was
I
his
was
first
surprised. I thought so
nomination.
too. For directing,
I was really surprised that he had not gotten nominated for directing Walk the Line. I knew he had not got nominated for directing Ford v Ferrari, but yeah, I was surprised that this was his first nomination. Well, first directing nomination, I should say. He's been nominated for writing before, so
sure. Yeah, it's still a good group. Oh,
yeah.
God.
Well,
Yeah,
for the most part, like I Amelia Perez, it's like there are so many other people I would have loved to have seen nominated over Amelia Perez in this movie, in this category.
Again, it peaked too soon. It was over nominated. It's not going to have the night. It's not going to get to.
Honestly, I don't think it's a particularly well directed musical. It's not even the best directed musical in this.
See, I had problems with the sound in this film watching it on my television. Like, it just always seems so soft. Like, the mix to me didn't.
It's just such a. It's such a scattershot vision. That's the thing. It's like, I'm like, really? Why did you respond to it as much as you did? I'm like,
I
what
think
are
the
we
thing is
doing
that what you
here?
can, well, I'll play devil's advocate with that, and it's not my favorite film. I wouldn't rank it higher than maybe ninth or eighth or through 10. But I will say that I respect the film a lot more than I like it. And I think that's probably what happened with this film is that, yes, it's not perfect,
Yeah.
but at least it was an original idea and it was an original story
Mm-hmm.
told in a very original and flashy way to the point where I'm like, yes, I understand why it received some of these nominations. I understand why people respect it.
Yeah.
But
I
I
think
had a friend over and she asked me, she's like, she's going through a list. She's a mom. She's got a 2-year old, 3-year old. She's like, what about this? And she was trying to figure out a movie we were going to watch. And she's like, what about Amelia Perez? I'm like, you should see it because she's, another film buff too, loves them,
yeah.
doesn't have as much time as she used to. You should see it. I'm not watching it a second time. Like, no, it's like, you should see The Brutalist. We are not watching that tonight.
Right.
But it does fall into that category where, like, yes, it's very creative. It's deserves to be respected. It just got a little over nominated.
Yeah.
That's my feeling about it, at least.
So
agree or disagree, I get it.
Yeah. So I do think we both kind of agree that we can see Corbett being the winner and director. I mean,
Yeah.
because of DGA, I guess, and unless if the love for Enora is truly just off the charts, I can see it. I can see Baker winning, but at the same time, I just don't see it with that movie. I feel like Brutalist is such a bigger accomplishment.
Yeah, and Sean Baker had the chance to close the door at BAFTA, and he couldn't.
Yeah.
And we can't argue that Conclave won. Conclave didn't win actor. It didn't win supporting actress. They didn't go so far that we're all like, they didn't win like production design. Where we're like, okay, Brits, like we know you like to wave the flag, but y'all went a little too far this time. Like they didn't do something like that where we're like,
right.
We need to take this with a pinch of salt.
Yeah.
So I do think, like, and I know we're not talking about Conclave, but I do think for like Brady Corbett, he won Globe, he won BAFTA, so he's definitely got the international vote.
Yeah.
We know the critics like John M. Chu, which best acceptance speech of the year. I'm gonna win an Oscar. Oh, that's the way to win after you've been snubbed by every other group.
Yeah.
And then you have Sean Baker, and it just feels like Enora had one good night, and then it just kind of plateaued again.
Yeah.
So
that brings us
here we go.
The Best Picture nominees: Enora, The Brutalist, The Complete Unknown, Conclave, Dune Part 2, Amelia Perez, I'm Still Here, Nickel Boys, The Substance, and Wicked. SAG brought Conclave into the mix slightly with Best Ensemble. Enora was PGA winner, and has kind of been the front runner the entire run.
It's been the front runner, but it's had problems. Yes, it won PGA, DGA, and WGA, but it couldn't close the door with a SAG win.
No.
It couldn't. Not only did it not win, its star couldn't win.
Yeah.
Huge problem. Like it needed one of those two.
Yeah.
Then you look at Conclave. Conclave needed this win.
Yeah.
Frankly, that film deserved ensemble.
Mm-hmm.
And then it won the British BAFTA.
Yeah.
So I do think that what you have to remember, and here I'm going to go with my stats talks, is that this is a preferential ballot.
Yeah.
You cannot win Best Picture with 10.01% of the vote.
Mm-hmm.
So let's just say Amelia Perez only gets 9, the rest of them get 10. Conclave or Anora get 11. That can't happen.
Yeah.
What has to happen, I just picked Amelia Perez to be last. I don't know why. I just, it's the first film I saw on the list. Anyways, you have to get to 50% of the vote. So I'm going to use the La La Land year as an example. It's very possible what happened was is they take all the ballots, they see who's number one, they split them all up. No film gets to 50%, so they eliminate the eighth or they eliminate number 10. They split them all up again. It's possible that La La Land, after the first ballot was in first place.
Yeah.
But those second and third place votes probably went to Moonlight. And slowly but surely, as they started to eliminate other films and redistribute those ballots, Moonlight probably took it.
Yeah.
That's probably how Moonlight took it. The same thing could happen with Conclave, is that it's probably more the consensus choice, where if we saw the first round of voting, it might be Anora.
Mm-hmm.
But not enough to win in a first ballot. So you eliminate a film, those ballots get redistributed. It's very likely that Conclave will be most people's number 2 through 4, which is where you kind of want to be.
Yeah.
And that's why I think a film like Conclave ultimately will win. It's not as divisive a film.
Right.
I think we'll see a repeat at BAFTA. Film, screenplay, adapted screenplay, editing. Bing, bang, boom. And remember, Spotlight lost every award imaginable and pulled off Best Picture with just a SAG Ensemble win.
Mm-hmm.
So is that enough stats and numbers for you at this time of night?
No, I do. I agree with you. I agree with you. I think the preferential ballot is what's going to take Conclave over the top. I think, and honestly, it's going to be, and to bring this, to bring the real world into this again. It's
an election year.
Well, it's an election year, on top of which we currently have the current pope being gravely ill. And
well, that's not happening during voting. So that's kind of a moot point, but yeah.
But yeah, I do think there is, and plus, I mean, I do agree. I think the SAG Ensemble win definitely means a lot.
Remember, Parasite lost BAFTA, not lost BAFTA, it lost PGA, it lost the DGA. And what was the difference between the DGA votes and the BAFTA votes? Well, at the Academy, everyone votes for Best Director.
Yeah.
Which is how, when you have the full backing of the SAG, the acting branch, Bong Joon-ho probably pulled off that upset.
Yeah. No, I do think Conclave is probably going to be the win. And
that would be the third Best Picture winner that Ralph Fiennes has been in. Like, that's unbelievable.
Yeah, and his first.
Oh wait, no, fourth. Remember Hurt Locker? He was in the Hurt Locker.
Oh yeah, that's right. I mean, he wasn't
a
major player in that movie, but yeah, I mean, you're
still
right.
in it.
Fourth, yeah.
Damn, that's a lot. Like, it's got to get that Oscar sooner than later, I'm sure.
Yeah. I mean, I was a little surprised. Adrien Brody kind of ran away with it for a lot of this award season. I mean, I recognize it's a great performance, but it's like I really kind of expected a little bit more diversity, a little bit more difference in, a little bit more of a toss up in that category between him, between Coleman Domingo. I was
surprised too.
But
I was surprised too, but I thought that like I think that Brody's is a little bit showier, where Fiennes is very quiet.
yeah,
So I understand it. I don't necessarily agree with it,
right.
but it is sometimes harder when you've got someone who's giving you 3.5 hours worth of everything they could possibly do,
Yeah.
and then some, and another person giving this very refrained, quiet performance. But God, he's such a good. I mean, he's such a great actor. He has bragging rights over every British actor. Here's a fun trivia fact for you: he is the only actor ever to win a Tony Award for playing Hamlet.
Mm-hmm.
All the Brits who've ever done it, he's the only one to have won. So it would be nice. He famously was, for Schindler's List, one of those people who won like every critics group, like New York, London, LA, Boston, like, and then he got to the Golden Globes and it just didn't happen. So
Yeah.
I don't care, Tommy Lee Jones. Yeah, I mean, all-time villain performance. He's a wonderful actor, and I hope that this proves he's back and he's going to get another nomination. He's back on their radars. It's amazing how long it's taken for the third one to come along.
I was very surprised by how long it had taken, how long it had been since his last nomination. I mean, I guess I shouldn't be, because of the fact that it's like, if you really think about his career, it's like, well, what else will he have been nominated for?
Quiz
But
show. I think most years he would have been nominated for Grand Budapest Hotel, but it was so competitive that
Yeah.
year.
yeah,
I mean, most years he would have won the Golden Globe for that.
yeah,
Like if Michael Keaton and Birdman wasn't in his way, he would have probably won and been one of the front runners to win the Oscar for that role, because that was like the big breath of fresh air. It's like where
Yeah.
we're like,
yeah.
yeah, we know he can act, but we didn't know he could do that. Like that's a completely different.
It was, yeah, it was completely out of left field for him, and that's what made that performance so delightful. But I will always rue A. Redmayne winning that award that year, because that
It should have been Michael Keaton.
It should have been Keaton. I will never not be upset at that. But
Yeah. So let me ask you this, since we're just at the end of this. So how do you feel about Conan O'Brien as the 97th host of hosting the 97th Academy Awards?
I'm looking forward to it.
How do you think he's going to do?
I'm a little surprised that it took him this long to host.
Well, you have to remember he was on NBC, and ABC's not going to allow that.
Well, he was at NBC for a long time. Then he went to TBS for a bit.
Yeah, that's going to stop it.
But he's been off of TBS for a while, so I'm a little surprised it took him a little bit to agree to this. I'm looking forward to him on it, because he's one of the most naturally hilarious people, and I'm looking forward to seeing what he does with this group. It's gonna be
He's hosted the Emmys in the past, so he's done a good job there. But that's never necessarily a guarantee.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting, but I'm looking forward to it, because I've always been a fan of Conan's. So
I am too. I think that they picked somebody who knows how to deal with celebrities. He did a good job the one year he did host the Emmys, and the one half year he was the Tonight Show host, of course.
Yeah.
But I think he needs to keep. He has a tendency to go a little over the top, so hopefully he can keep that in check. But that's my problem with his Conan O'Brien Must Go show, is I'm like, sometimes he goes into this ugly American traveling. I'm like, yeah, you're giving all the rest of us a bad name, dude. Like, he was really annoying, this one person from Brazil. I'm like, oof, that guy looks like he wanted to hit you. But I'm like, again, we're 3 years away, God, from the 100th Academy Awards. Like, screw around as much as you want this year. you've got to get it right on the hundredth.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually don't mind it starting an hour earlier, personally.
Yeah.
Knock yourselves out.
No, it's gonna be it's gonna be interesting. And this was honestly a really, I mean, the nominees in general for this year just really point for the most part to how good this year was. Like all of the, like there are very few of the nominees where I'm like, I mean, I touched on it earlier. It's like there are very few of the nominees where I'm like, really, we went with that. Um,
I mean, I would have appreciated seeing a real pain in the Best Picture race. That's the one complaint I have personally. But other than that, I'm content with this group.
yeah,
I think we're seeing with like, especially with Wicked, probably like we'll get to you next year kind of a
Yeah.
thought. Also, I'd like to give them the slow clap for not submitting a new song just to shoehorn it in there to get another nomination.
mm-hmm.
Saving it for the next one. They made sure they fit in. Because we all know that's what they love to do with Broadway musicals.
Yeah.
The Les Miserables song is one of the worst.
Mm-hmm.
At least the Evita, at least You Must Love Me was pretty. Like,
Yeah.
ugh, yeah. This is, but I think it's going to be an interesting night, and it's at least a little more up in the air this year. I mean, last year, Oppenheimer, the big question was it whether it's going to win Best Sound?
Right. Yeah.
They're going to win 7 or 8 Oscars.
No, absolutely.
But
yeah.
I just to touch on that, and I'll stop with that. But I at least prove the Academy isn't just rubber stamping one film.
Right. Yeah.
So I appreciate that, and that gives me hope in all of these categories that they are paying attention.
Yeah, I don't see one movie just taking it. It's gonna be I think there's
It's going to be a spread out year.
There's gonna be a wide variety of winners, and I think that's always a good thing when it comes to the
Yeah, I
Oscars.
agree.
I
agree too.
I mean, yeah, there are times where it's great to see one movie just win constantly, but at the same time, I mean, it's also
We've had 2 years of that, so it's fun to see it when it's spread around.
We've seen that in the
bit.
past 2 years between Everything Everywhere All at Once and Oppenheimer. So, I mean, yeah, I think this is definitely a year where a little bit more varieties can be beneficial. So, Amanda, thank you once again for joining me. Where can people find you online?
You can find me on Twitter at Miss Amanda Spears. And I always post when I write there too. So,
Okay.
yay.
I'd like to thank Amanda once again for joining me on the Oscars. It's going to be a very interesting year. Before we get to the wrap up, though, this is the episode where I reveal my 10 best films of 2024. Admittedly, as I mentioned in the bulk of the episode, my catch-up watching for this year kind of just drifted off into the ether as Georgia Film Critics Association wrapped up its voting. So I didn't really get to, like I said, I think I'm Still Here is the only movie I got to as far as movies that I had not seen that were Oscar after the Oscars. So there's still a lot of movies that I need to catch up with, and I'm sure I will in good time over the next few years. But we now come to the point where I reveal my 10 best. I think this, especially as I was getting into podcasting, this made the most sense for me, and it allows me to prioritize having my favorites be the ones that you guys hear about at the end of the year. And this year ended up being a really fantastic year for movies, and I am always very appreciative of the opportunities I get to watch some of these movies on the big screen, to watch them early, and this has just been a very rich year. And before I go into my top 10, I do want to share some of my runners up. My favorites I shared, um, obviously, when we went into the favorites of the year in that blog, but some runners up that I could very well see possibly being in my 10 best list in any other year. Ghostlight, Love Lies Bleeding, The Watchers, Inside Out 2, Dune Part 2, Chasing Amy, Sasquatch Sunset, We Live in Time, Honk, short film, Me, Myself, and the Void, The Fire Inside, Rebel Ridge, Dee Dee, The Body Politic, The Substance, Baby Assassins 2, Alienoid, Return to the Future, Hard Truths, Thelma, Red Rooms, Nosferatu, Soundtrack to Coup d'etat, Quiet Place Day 1, Piano Lesson, Rape Play, and Memoir of a Snail. Of the movies that got my highest rating this year that did not make my top 10, there were a lot of really great ones. Musica, My Old Ass, With Love and a Major Organ, Michaela's Voice, A Letter to the World, Woman of the Hour, Atikamweku Sons, The Remarkable Life of Ebeline, and The Wild Robot. That being said, we now come to my top 10, and most of these have already been discussed in the context of my favorites. There's a lot of overlap in here, but there are some films that were not on my favorites list. But the first one is a movie that was on there, and it is Azazel Jacobs, His Three Daughters, with three absolutely wonderful performances by Carrie Coon, Elizabeth Olsen, and Natasha Lyonne, my personal best supporting actors of the year, as three daughters who are watching over their father as he is at the end of his life. The tensions that rise, the emotions that come up, it is such a rich experience. Number 9 is Guto Parente's A Strange Path, which I saw at the Atlanta Film Festival, where a young filmmaker is back at his home village for a film festival and gets an unexpected opportunity to reunite with his father. It is haunting, fascinating, and deeply empathetic. Number 8 is one of the Oscar nominees for Best Documentary Feature. It's No Other Land, made by 4 filmmakers, 2 Israeli and 2 Palestinian filmmakers. Basically looking at the destruction of the West Bank and people and activists who are working to maintain their homeland. And it is harrowing and heartbreaking, and it is definitely a must-see. Number 7 is Brady Corbett's The Brutalist. Like we talked about in the episode, just a staggering vision of a movie. Adrian Brody's performance is remarkable. Guy Pearce, Felicity Jones, and the production in general is amazing. Number 6 is Flow, This was my favorite film of the year last year, and I'm so excited that it's going to be getting a Criterion release later in the year. I'm definitely going to be picking it up. I've already got it on VOD. But it'd be good to own this movie as well. It's on Max. If you haven't had a chance, it's wonderful. It is such a beautiful movie. Number 5 is Evil Does Not Exist by Ryosuke Hamaguchi. And this movie is unnerving, uncomfortable. It's on the Criterion channel. It is a fascinating look at a father and daughter whose village is potentially getting turned upside down, but we see what happens when they voice their concerns. Number 4 is Twilight of the Warriors Walled In, one of my absolute favorite action movies of the past several years. It is a look at 1980s Hong Kong as it gets ready to, as the end of an era shows up. And it is thrilling, it is brutal, it is imaginative, is a great throwback to some of the great Hong Kong action films of the time. Number 3 is Sing Sing. And I talked about Coleman Domingo's performance being one of my favorites of this year. Clarence Macklin is another one. And this movie was cathartic. It was one that left an impact when I watched it back in July and August. It was just a stunning movie. I really wish it had been nominated for Best Picture. I really wish Coleman Domingo was winning Best Actor, but that's how it is. And I hope he gets a chance, but this is arguably the best performance he's given so far. Number 2 is Ramel Ross's Nickel Boys. And I talked about the abhorrent lack of a cinematography nomination for this movie, but honestly, Ramel Ross deserved a nomination for this movie. Ethan Harris and Brandon Wilson and Anjanou Ellis Taylor deserve nominations for this movie. This movie was one of the most singular experiences I had last year at watching a movie, and it was wonderful. That brings me to my number 1, which is a movie I definitely want to revisit and give some more thought to, is Rachel Lambert's Sometimes I Think About Dying. Daisy Ridley's character, one of the reasons I love this movie is that it is a movie about somebody who is ultimately introvert who pushes themselves to be extroverted, all the while dealing with thoughts of dying. And it doesn't necessarily mean they're suicidal. It just means they don't feel a lot of hope in life. And you don't really see life changing in the future. And it is one of those things that is just absolutely wonderful to watch. And it's a great performance by Daisy Ridley. She is turning into an absolutely wonderful actress. I mean, she was a wonderful actress even in the Star Wars prequels. But this year, between Sometimes I Think About Dying and a Young Woman in the Sea, she's taken it to another level. And I'm really excited to see what she comes up with next. With that said, that's going to be it for this episode of the podcast. Like I said, check us out at patreon.com/SonicCinema. Check us out at Sonic Cinema Podcast on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, Good Pods, wherever you listen to podcasts, we will be there. I've got my interviews for the Renegade Film Festival to share, which will actually be a really great, it's interesting. I think it's going to be a really great bookend to kind of what we're talking about. Going to talk about one of the most notorious films of the past 25 years with a new guest on the podcast. We're going to be looking at more films within the realm of fascist cinema, and we've got so much more. But thank you very much for listening. This is Brian Scuttle of www.sonic-cinema.com, and I hope you have a good night. Thank you.